All right, this is Mr. Ramos. I'm going to go ahead and work the quiz we took this last Friday on the 7th, I believe, and hopefully this helps you out. Okay, problem number 1, given the equation 8x plus 6y is equal to 12, find the y-intercept. Now, you were able to use your notes here, and if you go look at the notes that we took on 11.4, you were being asked this question of finding the y-intercept. These notes right here, I don't know if you recall, are about the y-intercept, and it says here, right here, how do you find the intercept given an equation? So you were being asked to find the y-intercept, so you needed to follow this procedure here in your notes by simply replacing the x with 0 and then solving for y. Now we worked a few examples on this. I know you had it in your notes, so this problem right here should have been fairly easy. All right, so let's go ahead and do the problem now. Solving for the y-intercept, it tells me that I was supposed to go ahead and replace the x with 0 and then solve for y. Okay, so now that I've substituted in 0 for x, I'm going to do the arithmetic, and I know that 8 times 0 is 0, so I'm doing my simplification. I am left with 6y equals 12. Isolating the y here, I'm going to divide by 6 in order to get the y by itself, so y is equal to 12 divided by 6 is 2. Okay, that's my y-intercept. That's all you had to do. Some of you all were writing the equation in slope-intercept form, which wasn't necessary, guys. One of the things I stressed was to read the directions, and that was even highlighted in black on your test, so I was hoping that would avoid any confusion. One of the things I'm finding is you're having a hard time making the connection between what you do in your notes to your independent work. All right, and this quiz being sort of an independent work, a lot of you all weren't able to make those connections, so therefore this quiz was pretty difficult for you guys, and that's something that we need to work on, is being able to utilize certain resources to help you do problems that you may not be familiar with. But in this particular case, you should have been familiar with this problem. All right, let's go on to the next problem. All right, problem number 2, given the equation 6x minus 4y equals 24, write the equation in slope-intercept form. This was even highlighted in black. And plus, I give you the form that I'm looking for right there. Okay, so if you refer to your notes that we took on the 4th, the 3rd, let me go back to the 3rd, right here, this is where we work these types of problems. I do give you some steps to follow. Where are we at here? How do you identify linear functions as linear equations? This is where we talked about standard form. Okay, and you can see that in the quiz problem, the problem is written in standard form, and your job is to put it in slope-intercept form. Okay, so what we did here is, in order to do that, you have to solve for y. And if you notice here were your notes that you were given. How do you write an equation in slope-intercept form when written in standard form? So this is the problems that you would have needed to look. And we did work 2 examples on how to do this. Okay, so once again, if you're not taking good notes, this is why you're having problems with your quizzes when you do your independent work. Okay, you're not able to make the connections between what we're doing in class to what you have to do when it comes to a quiz. All right, so let's just go ahead and work the problem now. Given the equation, write the equation in slope-intercept form. All right, so to do that, I'm going to take my equation, 6x minus 4y is equal to 24, So I do have to move this 6x over to the right side. So mathematically, the way you do that is you're going to subtract a 6x to zero it out on the left side. Okay, and then whenever you add on the left side, you do have to do it on the right side also. So since I added a minus 6x here, I want to go ahead and minus a 6x on this side. I'm going to move the 24 over by adding the 24. Okay, so this zeroes out right here. I'm left with 4y is equal to negative 6x plus 24. To isolate the y, I'm going to divide by negative 4, which is the number that's right next to the y. It's not 4, it's negative 4. A lot of y'all made that error. Okay, now finishing this off, this cancels out, so I end up with y is equal to, now I end up with negative 6 over negative 4. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and leave it like that for now. And then minus, because 24 divided by negative 4 is 6. Okay, I'm just about done, but I know that this right here is a fraction that can reduce. So I'm going to go ahead and reduce it. So reduce it by dividing 2 into both. So I'm going to end up with 2 goes into 6 3 times, and 2 goes into 4 2 times. Okay. A negative over a negative is also a positive, so I end up with a positive slope. So that is my final answer and what I was looking for there. Problem number 3, you're being asked to graph a line with a slope of negative 2 through the point 2, 3. Okay. I did have some questions on what you actually had to do here, and I did know that graph was highlighted in black. So those were your instructions. With that being said, just to kind of reference your notes, if you had looked at your graphing notes here that we had took on the earlier in the week, you had a warm-up that you had to graph, but your examples were right here. You're given a point, okay, and then you were given the slope. All right, so you had an example there to look at. You also had an example here to look at where you were given a point and then given the slope. So you had 2 examples that you could have referenced in your notes in order to get this particular problem correct. Okay, so going back to this problem, so what are we supposed to do? Well, the first thing we do is we go plot the point. So looking at your notes, it tells you to do that. So to plot the point, you're going to go 2 on the x first, and then go up to 3, and then you're going to end up putting a dot right there. Okay? It's troubling, though. Some of you all did get that particular point wrong because you plotted the point at 3, 2, which would have been right here, right here, which was wrong. Okay, so some of you all do need to work on plotting points. Okay? Please YouTube that. And then from that, we're supposed to look at our slope, which was negative 2. Okay, so we have the whole number 2, and anytime you're given a whole number when looking at slope, I've asked you all to go ahead and put it as a fraction. So you can utilize the rise over run method. Okay, so from this point, since it's negative, you will be going down 2, and then you'll be running 1. Okay, and then you'll put your point. Okay, once you have your 2 points, you can now draw a line through those 2 points, and you have graphed it. Another thing that I found interesting, it tells you that it has a negative slope, and we've talked about negative lines going in this direction here. Okay, and a lot of you all graphed lines that went like this, which was a positive slope. This is a positive slope. These are negative slopes here, guys. Okay, so with that being said, your graph should have looked like this. All right, taking a look at question 4, write an equation of a line, which was highlighted. Some of you asked me some questions, what are you doing? You're supposed to write an equation of a line. Okay, that is parallel to the line y is equal to 5x plus 10. The notes you should have referred to are notes that we just took on 11.5. And these notes right here talk about what is needed for a parallel line. And it's highlighted right here, guys, that you need same value for slope. Okay? So with that being said, let's kind of go back to the quiz. You know that you're writing the equation of a line, and we've talked about it. Anytime you're going to write an equation, you're going to take the form of y is equal to mx plus b. Since the fact that I'm telling you that it's parallel, that tells you that you have to have the same slope as this line. So you already know that this is slope is 5x, and your job is to go figure out what b is. Okay? Well, this is a combination problem. Here, if you would have went to also look at your notes from the graphing one that we did, some of the problems that we did here. It says, remember in our last lesson we learned how to write a linear equation of a line given the slope and a point. Let's find the equations of the 5 lines we just graphed. So we had worked these examples here in our notes where you were given a slope and then you were given a point and how to come up with this, and y is equal to mx plus b. So you did have your notes on this, and so remember, you're given a slope and then you're given a point, and you had to come up with the y equals mx plus b equation. Okay, so going back to our equation, oh look, we're given a slope and then we're given a point. Okay, and with that being said, where's my point here? Oh, okay. Well, on your quiz, I don't know why it didn't print out, but our point was 0, -2. Okay? So what you're, let's go ahead and solve this. So what you're supposed to do is go substitute in these values in for x and y. Okay, since that's the way an ordered pair is written. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to substitute in my -2 for the y, and then I'm going to substitute in the 0 for the x, and I'm going to solve for b since we know this is our y-intercept. Okay, so -2, doing the arithmetic, 5 times 0 is 0, so that cancels out right there. So I'm left with that my y-intercept is -2. Well, your job was to write an equation that is parallel to y is equal to 5x plus 10. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to go ahead and plug in our values, which is y is equal to 5x minus 2. And that was the equation that we were looking for. All right, final question. Graph the 2 lines below and tell me if they are parallel or perpendicular or neither. Okay, this is where I said that everything had to be correct. So the first part was graph the 2 lines. Okay, so I look at these 2 lines and I see that this is written in y is equal to mx plus b form. Okay, and then I see this line, and this is written in standard form, which is a plus by is equal to c. Okay. One of the things we did, which was in your notes, was to take this equation here and to rewrite it into y is equal to mx plus b form, okay, which was what we just did here in question number 2. All right, so this was kind of a multiple step type question. So I want to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to have 3x plus 6y is equal to 18. I'm going to subtract the 3x on the left side, and I'm going to go ahead and add it to the right side. Okay. These cancel out here. I'm left with 6y is equal to a negative 3x plus 18. So to isolate the y, I'm going to divide by 6. So I end up with y is equal to a negative 1/2 because 3/6 reduces, and then plus 3. Okay, so with that being said and done, I now have this equation here written in slope-intercept form. So to graph it, let's go ahead and graph this equation first here. I plot the y-intercept, which is at 5, and then I look at the slope and use rise over run. So from this point, I'm going to rise 2 and then run 1. Okay, so just as a refresher, I take the 2 and I put it over 1. Okay, so I can do this. So now I know I have a line that goes in this direction. Makes sense to me because the slope is positive, so now I do have a line that is positive. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at this line right here. That's telling me to go put a point at 3, which is my y-intercept, and then now to utilize the slope by using rise over run. So it is negative, so that means I'm going to go down 1 over 2, down 1 over 2. So now that I've done that, I'm going to have a line that looks like this. So this is the way your graph should look. Now the next part of the question was to simply tell me whether these lines were perpendicular, parallel, or neither. Well, it's plain to see that they're not parallel because parallel lines do not intersect. They look something like that. So these lines are possibly perpendicular, but in order for them to be perpendicular, their slopes have to be opposite reciprocals. So if I look at the slope of the first equation, which was right here, the opposite reciprocal of that, okay, is going to be, well, since this is positive, the opposite means it has to be negative. And then the reciprocal, I have to flip the denominator and the numerator and get 1/2. Okay, well, is the slope of the other equation negative 1/2? And it sure is. So these lines are perpendicular. All right, this is what we were looking for this quiz.